Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute roller coaster ride in this story pertaining to the pro-police rally attendee who was shot and killed by a man the police claimed was a security guard. We now know this guy was not a security guard. It's complicated. He may have been hired by a local news outlet, but he was not licensed to be a security guard. He was acting illegally. This story gets weirder and weirder. But to give you the quick context for those that may have missed the story, during a rally and counter rally in Denver, there were pro-police, many pro-Trump individuals rallying in support of police, and a counter demonstration called the AntiFa Soup Drive. At some point, an altercation broke out between a man wearing a shirt that said "Black Guns Matter," and people were talking to him. The guy was saying, "Come on, mace me," things like that. All of a sudden, just to this person's side, the camera pans and you see one of the right-wing rally goers go down. He was shot in the face. It was first stated by the Denver Post that this man was a left-wing demonstrator. That was the initial report that came out. Of course, we then saw the Post-Millennial say alleged Antifa individual, likely because the story was still early. The Denver Post later issued a correction when the police issued a statement. The man who shot the Trump supporter, pro-police biker guy, I'm assuming he's a Trump supporter. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's fairly obvious to assume. This guy was private security for a local news outlet. Immediately, retractions started coming out from people like me. I should say I put in, updates and stuff because the statements that came out through me were like alleged Antifa, and I didn't really make strong statements, just showed the news article. But immediately I updated. Denver police saying this guy was a security guard unaffiliated with the protests. That was technically untrue. It turns out yesterday, with all of these updates coming in, this shooter is a Bernie Sanders supporting pro-Black Lives Matter leftist who is very active during Occupy Wall Street protests. This doesn't mean the individual is very active now, but the organization with which he is involved, called Sub.Mission, has solicited donations to bail out rioters just this past June at the peak of the George Floyd riots. So this guy may not be Antifa, and this is a very important distinction, but he was pro-Black Lives Matter. Then the story became that this guy was a security guard, but he was a leftist. So why is it that Pinkerton or the news organization did not vet this man and sent a left-wing tribalist, pro-Black Lives Matter individual armed with a gun to a Trump-supporting, police-supporting rally? You can clearly see, it is easy to understand what would happen in a circumstance like that. If you send someone down who's pro-Trump, they're going to have no problem hanging out with the pro-Trump people. The same is true for Antifa and the Antifa people. But if you send a security guard who's Black Lives Matter activist, Occupy activist, into a Trump rally, well, there's going to be tensions, and one guy was armed. A photographer did an amazing job capturing everything that happened, shooting sequential photos at probably about 9 frames per second, I believe is probably a standard rate. They have put together an animated GIF of the shooting, giving us a sort of rudimentary video, a sequence, if you will, but it's an animated sequence. And you can see this man, I believe his name is Lee Kelter. He's been identified. Was, according to the reporter, the photographer on scene, the security guard, now we now know he's not a security guard. This is the update. This guy was not a legal security guard. What he was doing, I have no idea. According to the photographer, he came up behind her, approaching the Trump-supporting police biker guy. Approached him. In a photo, you can see his hand stretched out, looking like maybe he's going for the pepper spray, the mace. The right-wing rally attendee, Lee, strikes him in the face, knocking his head off. He takes 2 steps back, and as he's backing up, in the photos, you can see this man, Matthew Doloff, the murderer, grab his gun before the right-wing rally attendee ever makes any moves for his mace or anything like that. And as Doloff draws his weapon, he raises the spray and sprays him and then takes a bullet to the face. First-degree murder charges for Matthew Doloff. The big breaking update right now is that Doloff is not a security guard. So let's walk all of these things back. What was he doing there? Well, perhaps we're still waiting for official statements, but they say Doloff had been hired by 9 News to serve as security during dueling protests outside the Denver Art Museum. Colloquially, he was a security guard. He was hired to provide security to a journalist. Legally, he was not a security guard. He was an armed leftist hired and sent to a Trump-supporting, police-supporting rally. This story just gets weirder and weirder. And I think there's going to have to be some very serious lawsuits for the Keltner family. But let's read the news from the Daily Mail and see what's going on. The suspected gunman who allegedly shot and killed. Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. There are certain moments when you want to say allegedly. Now is not one of them because we have witness statements, video of it happening. We have sequential photos showing it happening. Matthew Doloff is seen on film shooting this right-wing rally goer in the face, killing him. Okay, you don't need to say allegedly. They say he was not licensed to work as a security guard. Matthew Doloff, 30, a Pinkerton contractor who was hired to serve as security for Denver Station 9 News, was arrested on suspicion of murder after he opened fire on Lee Keltner, 49, who deployed mace at him during dueling rallies on Saturday afternoon. I got to stop you right there. He opened fire on Keltner, going for his gun before the mace went off. Keltner was backing away. The Denver Department of Excise and Licenses on Sunday confirmed there was no record for an active licensed security guard now or ever for Doloff, who was hired to protect staff during the demonstration, CBS 4 reported. If he was operating as a security guard, he was in violation of the law. Department spokesman Eric Escudero told the news station. Security guards are prohibited from carrying or using a firearm without getting an armed firearm endorsement for their license. All security guards in Denver are required to get a federal background check before they receive their license. Escudero added that Doloff could face up to a year in prison or a $999 fine for the offense. In images snapped by a Denver Post photographer, Keltner appeared to slap Doloff and then deployed a stream of mace into his face before the guard lifted his handgun. False. False, false, false. Fake news. In the sequence of photos, which I'm sorry, I can't show you on YouTube, Keltner is backing away and you see Doloff grabbing his gun and drawing it before any mace is fired. Doloff immediately surrendered to riot police who rushed in to arrest him seconds after the gunshot rang out. He was taken into custody on suspicion of first-degree murder, but has not been formally charged. And apparently he's being held without bond. So no charges. Keltner was identified by as a victim by family members who revealed their grandfather and military veteran was shot dead in front of his 24-year-old son. Carol Keltner, who said she is the victim's mother, wrote in a social media post that her son was murdered because he supported the police. My son Lee was at the Patriot rally today in Denver, Carol wrote in a Facebook group called Northeast Arkansas Tea Party Group. After the rally, a person on the Black Lives Matter and AntiFa side went up to him, said a few nasty words, and then shot him in the head. He was murdered because he backed the police. His 24-year-old son was with him. I moved to Arkansas because Colorado got too expensive and liberal. The left has gotten out of hand. Now, here, listen, this saying the security guard was on the BLM and Antifa side is going to be argued as either true or false by both sides. The right will say he clearly was on their side. The left will say he wasn't on their side. You see the semantic difference. The left will argue that he was there as a security guard and was not on the side of that counter rally. The right will argue that as a leftist, he was on their side figuratively. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? He was tribalistically on Antifa's side. Straight up, no question about it. His posts on Facebook show this, saying hashtag left is best. He also ragged on Dave Rubin as a shill, very clearly a leftist, watching left-wing YouTube programs, being an Occupy activist. Now, he wasn't there in the capacity that he was joining the rally. That's the important distinction. The Denver Police Department has said Doloff had no known affiliation with the Black Lives Matter and Antifa group that staged a counter-protest against the Patriot Muster rally. Let me stop you right there. Antifa is an idea. When people show up to these rallies, they don't receive there's not a light in the sky saying Antifa assemble. They put out a general flyer and call for people to support them. So the Denver Police Department screwed this one up royally by saying he was unaffiliated. They did no work, and putting out this statement made everything worse. Now the left is claiming the right is lying. Now you've got high-profile news outlets saying he was nothing to do with the rally. They are lying. I don't care what the circumstances of his arrival were. In fact, it's worse. A news organization hired a fake security guard to bring a gun to a Trump-supporting, police-supporting rally. This individual was a tribal pro-Black Lives Matter leftist, given an excuse to bring a gun to a right-wing rally where he approached a Trump-supporting right-wing guy and then put a bullet in his face. There's no justification for that. Police declined to confirm whether the victim, who they have not yet named publicly, was pronounced dead at the hospital. In an update shared on Sunday by the DPD, said further investigation revealed Doloff was acting in a professional capacity as an armed security guard for a local media outlet and not a protest participant. That's the important distinction. However, he wasn't a real security guard. So you have to wonder if there's something else here. This guy was working for Pinkerton, and the leftists are laughing it up. Pinkertons are a very famous, very old private security contractor from 1850 till today. And I don't know the full history, but something to do with Chicago and anarchists or something like that. So they're laughing. Keltner's sister, Suzanne Keltner, on Sunday said her nephew has been struggling to cope after witnessing his father's death. He was my brother, my only sibling, Susan told the New York Post. He also served our country. Jay Keltner, who identified himself as one of Lee's sons, also posted about the tragedy on Facebook, writing, "I can't believe my dad's gone. This will never be right." He also changed his cover photo to a video grab from the fatal incident showing his father spraying mace at Doloff. We can see here this is part of a previous argument with, I believe this may be Keltner. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe not. No, it looks like that is Keltner. Yeah. You can see he's got mace in his hand. And this man, the Black Guns Matter shirt, is saying something like, mace me, mace me. Jay told the Denver Post his father wasn't a member of any group and was there to rally for the police department, as he had done so at previous protests. It is unclear if Jay was present during his father's death. The moments leading up to the shooting were captured in a video posted on social media, which show Keltner engaged in a shouting match with another man, believed to be with the group Black Lives Matter and AntiFa counter-protesters. No, his shirt says Black Guns Matter. It's a different group. Although he very likely was on the side of the left, AntiFa. The counter-protesters continued shouting as Keltner walks out of the video frame. Seconds later, a gunshot rings out, and Keltner is seen lying on the pavement. 9 News confirmed that it had hired the guard through the private Pinkerton detective agency to watch over its staff during Saturday's dueling protests between pro-police groups under the name Patriot Muster and a BLM Antifa soup drive. I'm going to make something very, very clear and say something very important. Antifa organized this as a counter rally, as I so often have warned about. The right-wing individuals did not show up to a left-wing rally and attack the left. The Black Lives Matter soup drive was a counter-protest the fascist rally nearby, Civic Center Park. Join the Denver Communists, Colorado Socialist Revolution, a non-resistance movement, which Denver Hose, Help on Every Street, Front Range Mutual Aid Network, and more for a Black Lives Matter anti-fascist soup drive. And you can see there are rainbow trails coming off soup cans as they fly through the air, a reference to throwing heavy cans at individuals they don't like. They said, we will be counter-protesting a fascist rally that is supposed to happen at the same time and place. We want to send these worms back into their holes, demoralized and isolated, with only their racist president to console them. We'll have soup for our family, music speakers, communist books, and plenty of angry anti-fascist chants. Denver Communists. The far left organized an event calling these humans, these people who were rallying for the police, worms, reminiscent of what Keith Olbermann said when he called them maggots who must be removed from society. It is not the pro-police right-wing groups showing up to anti-fascist rallies and attacking them. It is not the Proud Boys showing up and attacking the far left. It is the other way around. And in this circumstance, a news organization hired a man who was not legally allowed to be doing this job who was a leftist, to go to this rally put on by police supporters. I want to be more specific. Approached him, according to the reporter. The reporter said he came up behind her, angry and shouting. And when he approached Keltner smacked him in the face, knocking his hat off, took several steps back, and then this guy drew his gun and shot him. That was a rage killing. That was a passion crime. There was no threat from Keltner. None. Pepper spray. Not a lethal threat. And so again, I mentioned this the other day. We looked up the law, and you do not have the right to shoot someone and kill them, to shoot someone at all, if they are retreating from you and only holding pepper spray. Pepper spray does not constitute lethal force, and shooting someone in the face does not constitute reasonable use of force in this circumstance. If the guy was punching at him, still, apparently in Colorado, if Keltner even swung a fist at him repeatedly, lunging at him, would not constitute a right to use lethal force. I kid you not. Specifically, you have to, I believe, because we went through a bunch of like posts and stuff, like NRA stuff about this. For this to have been justified, Keltner would have to be like holding him down and pummeling him. Pepper spray does not constitute a serious lethal threat. Now, there's a lot more going on that I think I may have to say for other segments, but maybe I'll just jump into it now. This is from sarahcarter.com. Antifa rioters destroy Lincoln statue, Roosevelt, and more on Day of Rage in Portland. I think, I might get into this a little bit more a little bit later, because we've also got the police now arresting Jewish men in New York for staging protests. The same kind of protest Black Lives Matter had. Things are getting scary, man. Things are getting really, really messed up and scary. And so you have Antifa showing up, destroying property, burning down buildings, killing people. And now we have a security guard. So let me say something, man. A lot of people aren't going to want to hear it, but the first that needs to be said is, do not engage these people. I think the stupidest thing the Proud Boys could have done is announce they're going to Portland, and they should not have. Now, to be fair, when they showed up, they stayed away and the police kept everything separate, and there were no real confrontations between the Proud Boys. But the last thing anyone needs is any political tribal group, faction to be showing up to these events. To be fair again, Antifa shows up to the rights events and is killing them. In Portland, what did we see? Trump supporters held a rally in Portland. I think it was a dumb move. I absolutely think it was stupid and would encourage everyone not to do this. They were driving through the city. I understand they have the right to do it. And then a lunatic Black Lives Matter Antifa stalked two men and put 2 bullets in the chest of a man, killing him. Now, in Denver, a local news outlet hired an avowed leftist who said, I kid you not, recently, left is best. And he shot a man in the face. He engaged him. The security guy, the fake security guard, engaged the right-wing dude, not the other way around. So I don't know what the answer is, because it's not the right killing the left. It's not. Sure, there are extremist incidents, and I think everybody disavows them, and no one wants that to happen. And those people should be condemned beyond totally. They should be locked up, throw away the key. But we're talking about Trump supporters here. No one cares for the actual, white supremacists, neo-Nazis. Throw them out with lock these people up when they get violent. And I'm glad that the FBI is tracking down the extremists and locking them up. Good. You want to get violent? You want to threaten people? You want to kidnap people? You go to prison. Now, if you're a Trump supporting guy waving an American flag and you want to go and march, yeah, that's what you're allowed to do. And therein lies the big problem. I don't want to see anybody clashing. But in this circumstance, what do we say? Trump supporters aren't allowed to have parades anymore? They're not allowed to have rallies? No, that is unacceptable. Trump supporters are allowed to stand on a street corner waving a flag. But the left keeps showing up and attacking and now killing them. But the media will give you the opposite narrative. They'll claim the Proud Boys are the real problem. Oh, please. A bunch of frat bros who want to go to a bar and get drunk and wave American flags is not a threat. Not a threat. Though it is true, when Antifa shows up to their rallies, fights break out. And that's why the Proud Boys, they say they're acting defensively, but in too many circumstances, more specifically, The Proud Boys had a thing called the fourth degree, which, everyone should be critical of, where you upgraded your rank by defending Western values in a fight, which meant, if Antifa comes and attacks your rally, you fight back. And I can understand the idea of self-defense and all that stuff. And if you have a right to go march around, you shouldn't be scared of these people. I don't know what the answer is. What I do know is it is not the right wing that is going around showing up to rallies and killing people, and the media is lying to everybody. And this is why things are getting scary. I'll tell you what the scariest thing now is. You know what's worse? Everyone's trying to claim this security guard was Antifa. He was Antifa. Oh, shut up. No, he wasn't. He was a leftist. He was a pro-BLM leftist. He's not flying Antifa flags, and that is worse than Antifa. He is one of these Bernie Sanders supporting generic leftists who just killed a Trump supporter. You want to tell me that Antifa shows up like the guy with the Black Lives Matter tattoo on his neck and shoots a guy, and it's horrifying, but it's factional and we get it. We are now escalating to the point where regular leftists are just shooting Trump supporters in the face. That's worse than Antifa. Stop trying to make Antifa the absolute boogeyman. They're a problem. They exist. They have cells. They're organized. And the media will lie to you about it. Black Lives Matter is something else entirely. And so far, the two killings we've seen have been pro-Black Lives Matter leftists killing Trump-supporting right-wing individuals. That's scarier. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all next time.